Welcome to Soar Higher with Jason Ballard, a podcast developed for leaders by leaders to inspire you to reach your highest altitude possible by providing proven strategies, resources, and expert advice to accelerate your personal and professional success beyond what you thought was possible. I'm Joel Weiland, and I'm joined in studio today by your host, Jason Ballard, and today we're talking about the marks of great leadership. How are you today, Jason?
I'm great, buddy. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well, good sir. Well, we left off last week by discussing just very practical things about how to get into the lifestyle of leadership. And we talked about how that leadership is ultimately just a choice. And so I wanted to kind of pick up right where we left off, going directly into just some more practical aspects of how I can grow, how you can grow even in your experience, and how ultimately our listeners can grow practically in our pursuit of leadership.
Man, that sounds great. Leadership is a journey. It's just like life. Life's a journey. It's got a lot of twists and turns and opportunities that present themselves that you never knew were there, but also some roadblocks and challenges. Leadership's the same way. And so a lot of folks that I come across, they really want to be a leader. They played sports. They were a good athlete. They were good at band or, what other curricular activities they may have been involved in. They may have had a leadership role in their community or church. And now they're out there in the workforce, and they've been out there for a few years, and they have seen areas where they feel like they can contribute. They want to contribute more. They know there's more to them that they can give. They just don't know how to get started. And so today we want to give people that opportunity with some just really good basic steps for them to get going.
Yeah, that sounds great. Get us started, sir. What is one of the first things that you would recommend for somebody to just either think about or do if they wanted to become a better leader?
Yeah. So I've got 4 things that I want to give to folks today, whether they're just starting out as a younger leader, manager, or if they're looking to kind of take their leadership to the next level and they're getting ready to be promoted or take on some more responsibilities in some other ways. There's 4 things that they can do they probably haven't thought of yet that I think would be very, very important to them. So let's start with number 1. Quite simply, let me ask you a question. Does leadership even interest you?
That does seem like a good place to start.
It's an excellent place to start, right? When you look yourself in the mirror, am I even interested in the topic? Certain people, we got all these streaming movie and TV services out there now, and you can customize those things to you, right? So a lot of people like action movies and Tom Cruise movies. A lot of people like comedies. A lot of people like dramas. A lot of people like a lot of different things. But what interests you? If I went through your Netflix account and Hulu account, what would it be customized to, right? And so if I looked at you and your career and talked to you about those kinds of things, is leadership even in your mind? Is it even on your radar? Are you even interested in it? And there's a couple ways to find out. 1, do you read books about leadership? Do you go to the stores in your off time and in our kind of like a magnet, being pulled into those types of readings, the John Maxwell's, the Stephen Covey's, the Ken Blanchards, the different great authors out there that write really good books that are wonderfully oriented for folks. Are you even interested in those things? If you find yourself at Barnes & Noble or some other bookstore on a regular basis, or even going on Amazon and ordering that stuff, and you're constantly chasing that, looking for that, craving that, then chances are you've got some of the earlier signs of wanting to be a leader. Are you listening to podcasts like Soar Higher with us, right? This podcast is about leadership. It's about business. It's about careers and success and how to be successful. Are you listening to podcasts? Are you reading blogs? Are you just researching and kind of embodying yourself in this topic and wanting to learn more. I think that's step number one. If the answers to those questions are yes, then go to step number two. Step number two is, have you done an assessment for yourself? What do I mean by assessment? I highly recommend everyone get a DISC assessment. DISC is spelled D-I-S-C. That type of assessment is the world's best scientifically based psychometric analysis tool on the market today. It is the best. I use it in my business all the time with clients and various things. It's based on over 100 years of proven science from the best minds out there, behavioral scientists, neurologists, psychologists. They have really dialed that in. It is highly accurate. It takes about 25 minutes to take it online. It prints out about a 47, 48-page report that slices and dices you graphically in all kinds of ways and allows you to learn about you. And it is deadly accurate every single time. I've had a few people challenge me, and this doesn't sound like me, and and then they'll argue with me. And then when I work with them longer, well, come to find out it actually was true. They just didn't like some of the things it said about them, and that's part of it. But this is not a personality test. It's not like Myers-Briggs or Predictive Index or some of these other great tools out there. Those are all good and well. I certainly advocate for those too. But it's deeper, it's more powerful, it's more accurate. And it's not about a personality. It's who you are. It's your heart and soul. What makes you tick? What motivates you? What stresses you? What energizes you? How do you make decisions? What are you good at? What are you not good at? It really breaks this down in many, many, many different ways on a level that people can easily understand it and really get honest with themselves, because a lot of people say they want to do a lot of things, but then when you kind of pull back the onion on those things, sometimes what they thought they want ended up being not what they wanted. This tool is really, really helpful, and it will tell you, where you're at this snapshot in time in your ability to lead right then and there. And there are certain qualities, right? So it's a DISC assessment. It's 4 letters. It breaks people up into 4 different categories. D stands for dominance. And most people think of dominance like micromanager, dictator kind of. That's not what that means. It means you're more of a stronger, more competitive kind of person that's very fast moving, results oriented, no nonsense kind of person. The I stands for influence. Those are the people. They know a lot of people. They're very influential, very persuasive, very high energy, good with people and motivating people. They're really good at building teams. The D and the I combo is a really good indicator of somebody, whether they're ready for leadership or not. The S stands for steadiness. You think of like the steady eddies of the world, calm and cool.
Always showing up on time.
Up on time. Nothing ever rattles them. They're very thoughtful, very caring. People also can be, like people pleasers, very people, very, get to know you on a very personal level. The other 4th and final category is the C. That stands for compliance. Those are the kind of people that are rule followers. They're very neat and organized and like structure and formality and they need a lot of proof and evidence before you can convince them of something. And so it's interesting when you do the research on this that certain categories show up in certain fields. Like a lot of IT people, technology people, and a lot of like accountants are very technical. They're very C-oriented types of people, sense. Right? And so that's a great place to start. You can take that. It's like 25 minutes online.
Practically, just where would I find that? Is there like a DISC company that has a company website, or is there another place to find that kind of test?
Yep. So the people that own this product, it's called TTI. They work with coaches like me and other consultants, other people out there is kind of that wholesaler, reseller,
license or something like that.
Yeah, selling those things. So if you don't know anybody, now again, I will warn you, there are many different versions of DISC out there. If you Google it online, I'm not going to name them all, but the one that you want to connect with is ultimately administered by a company called TTI. They are the master of the original disc. There's a lot of other spin-offs that are kind of watered down versions of it. You don't want to take that. If your company is connected to that, a lot of HR departments have that embedded in their company. If not, you can reach out to my website at soarhighercoaching.com and connect with me, and I will quickly connect you with that, and we can see what we can do for you.
Yeah.
And you automatically get an email with your report. If you want to go over the report, you can find folks to help you go over the report like me. Very valuable tool that will give you a lot of insight to where you really are and what your capabilities are. And so even if you're maybe not ready to be a leader today, it will help you in identifying the things we need to work on for you to move forward and become a leader.
Really quickly, if say that I am an employer, should I, or would you recommend having anyone that I would potentially hire or have in my business, or maybe even have had in my business for quite some time? Should I pursue having those people take that test?
Yes. Very good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Joel. Very important point. DISC is a very, very powerful tool. It helps if you're a leader, business owner, and you are evolving and changing your business and moving people around, promoting people, doing normal daily business activities. You want to make the best informed decisions possible, especially about people, because people are complicated creatures, right? And so what made people successful yesterday doesn't mean they're going to be successful in something different tomorrow, right? So absolutely, when you go to promote people, elevate people, especially if you're hiring people you don't know, when you get down to that last candidate or two that you're interviewing and you're really serious about, I always encourage, and 80% of the Fortune 500 companies do this, by the way, administer a DISC assessment. It allows you to cut through things that certain people may say or demonstrate in an interview and give you some real concrete data to kind of formulate your holistic opinion. And clients I've worked with, where we go through that process, we have found that at the end of that process, DISC revealed some things that ultimately, save them a lot of time and trouble, because it's very expensive to hire people, train people, and then to find out later on down the road they're not a good fit.
Yeah. So one really quick practical question on that before we move on to the next practical advice that you have. What do you say when like an aspiring leader, either myself or other people, take that test and I just don't like what the test tells me? What do I do then?
Yeah. Well, get real.
That's
quite
good advice.
simply put, just get real. Soak that in. Even if you don't like it, you don't agree with it. I tell my clients this all the time. Go share this with your spouse. Let your spouse read it. Let your significant other read it. Let your kids read it. Let a coworker read it. Give it to some other people and get their feedback on it. I remember taking this. I take it about every 2 years, because people's profiles do change over time, right? They just kind of, they just do.
Yeah.
They just grow. They learn. They develop, and they get into different situations, different roles, and it changes. And so there was a couple things on mine 2 years ago that I was like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't really notice that. And of course, I go to my wife, and my wife's kind of person, like most spouses, they are not afraid to give you the cold hard truth of the realities of the world, and you win them. And she's like, no, you really, do things that way, or you really approach things in that manner, or whatever. And I kind of just had to kind of soak that in and just marinate that on that. If you do that and you're still heartbroken over that and you can't get over it, then I would say, connect with me, reach out to me and say, hey, can you take a look at this disc profile? Can you help me? I'm missing something. I don't understand something. Is there a glitch in this thing? Am I the only guy in the world that this thing, messed up on? And we'll figure it out. And because it's powerful in the things that are in it. It takes people a minute to talk through that and think through that. They're going to read it a certain way and think in certain aspects of it. They will think about it and it will, they'll take it the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I'm sure each one of those things has a positive and a negative aspect to it. I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It breaks down your areas to improve it. How you think of yourself and how certain people think of you, but also the perceptions of other people that may or may not know you very well. It is a full, peel back the onion review of you and where you are and how you make decisions, how you do things. And it's a great starting point for people. When I sign new clients up, I always start with the DISC assessment. If they don't have a current, if they hadn't taken it in about 2 years or less, I will always start that because that's always the starting point to clarity. And, everybody needs clarity to go from point A to point B.
Well, I'm probably going to connect with you after our recording because I haven't taken mine for probably about 3.5 years, and I imagine I've changed a little bit.
I guarantee it.
Man, but jumping back in, what are some other just practical ways that I can grow in leadership?
Yeah. So in addition to, looking at yourself and saying, am I leaning into this? Am I buying books, reading blogs? In addition to taking the DISC assessment, there's some other assessments you can take too. We offer them certainly in my company. I think other companies offer them as well. I've got a leadership assessment that kind of assesses, how many years you've led, where, how many times, how many people, the budget, and it will completely look at you from a leadership specific perspective. And it will score you out as far as, a junior level leader, senior level leader, et cetera. And I also have, a management assessment as well that kind of assesses your ability to manage people, budgets, resources, and all the things that creates that or that surrounds that. And it scores you out. You get a legitimate scorecard that comes with that, and you can say, okay, now I know where I'm at with my leadership, either on the ground floor, midway, or towards the top. What's it going to take to go where I want to go next?
Next level.
Yeah. In addition to those three things, the fourth and final thing I would say is get feedback.
Ooh, that's scary. That's an opportunity to be very humble, I'm sure.
Well, as a leader, you're only as successful as you are humble. And you can't just blindly go out there and lead because you'll end up leading yourself right off the cliff and nobody's going to pull you back up.
That's true.
They'll watch you go over the cliff if you're not careful. And so feedback is important. Just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're the only one giving feedback downwards. You need to look at feedback from your boss, your boss's boss, feedback from your spouse, your kids, your friends, and people that are in your inner circle that know you really, really well. Go get feedback. Go back and look at your annual appraisals. Look at your bonuses and look at your official things that people have said about you over your duration of your career. What are those things saying? Is there a common theme in any of those? What are your areas of improvement there that they're highlighting? Because, normally appraisals consist of, all the good things you've done and here's kind of next steps for you, some areas to improve and things to help develop yourself. One really, really powerful tool under the realm of feedback is something called a 360-degree survey.
Interesting. I'm actually not familiar with anything like that. What explain that for us?
A lot of people aren't, Joel. 360-degree survey is a feedback mechanism in which you can anonymously send out, emails or however you want to do it, but you send out like a questionnaire on either everybody on the team, and they can do it for each other, or you can solicit feedback from your peers, from your boss, and from, more importantly, your subordinates as a leader. And they anonymously, if you do this right, they anonymously are doing this. There's no names attached. There's no, unless you write it in there, but they give you really honest feedback. Every time I've been a part of that, every time I've administered that for a company out there, it is transformational every single time. There's things that come out of that are hidden treasures that people just weren't paying attention to, that is crucial for the leaders, and it might not even be about them personally. It could be about something that's going on in the culture, something's going on behind the scenes that you may not be aware of, that are little indicators of some issues. Very powerful. If you're a leader, always solicit for 360-degree types of feedback.
Yeah. Is that something just kind of like DISC that there's like a specific organization or company that has that? And then, of course, how would either myself or any of our listeners get access to that?
Yeah, you can Google 360-degree questionnaires, feedback, whatever. You can get them online. You can get them through lots of different sources depending on what you want to do. In my company, we have a partnership with other folks that allow us the ability to even customize those for specific people, for specific environments and cultures and industries, and we can really tailor those questions and be very, very specific. So if you can't find what you're looking for out there, get with us through the show, the podcast, or my website, and we'll connect you up. If we can't help you, we'll connect you up with people that can.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for everyone listening, that is soarhighercoaching.com. You can see Jason's pretty face there as well. He's definitely on the front page. Let's transition then to just some of your experience. If you can, tell us a story of how these principles, these specific practical things as well, has just led to success in the people's lives that you've coached.
Yeah. Leadership can be a lot easier for people if they have clarity. If you're the pilot of an airplane and you're flying your airplane in the dark or in cloudy, stormy weather, you want as much visibility as possible as a pilot to safely navigate the plane from point A to point B. Anytime there's things that are going on that kind of blur your vision can cause you a lot of challenges. And so sometimes people go through their day-to-day and, they may feel they're doing certain things a certain way. They may see themselves in a certain light that may or may not be true. And I came across a gentleman about 2 years ago, approached me about coaching. He says, hey, I've been in this company a long time. I'm a kind of a junior director level, and I'm a leader. And he described himself when he described himself, I'm thinking, okay, he's a senior leader, key decision maker in this organization. And I said, well, how can I help you? And he's like, well, it's time for me to get promoted. There's no opportunities for me in this particular company, and this, upward mobility is just not there right now. I'm looking to move on and look for that other place that I put in for resumes, and I put my resume in places and I'm not getting feedback and I'm not getting interviews, and I'm stuck and I'm frustrated, and what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And he was kind of negative a little bit, a little, down on himself, lost some confidence in this process. So we started the process. Well, one of the first things we did was DISC, and I kind of figured out who he was a little bit. And we started going through this process. I was looking at what he was doing, how he was doing it, what was working, what wasn't. Well, as I tell people that are looking to grow in their career, stop shotgunning your resume out to everybody and their brother on Indeed or LinkedIn or something in hoping that somebody feels the shotgun pellet and takes a look at you and hoping that somebody calls you. I said that is not a good tactic.
Yeah.
I said the tactic you need to use is, what is ideal for you?
Yeah.
What is ideal for you that allows you to live the life you really want to live? You know, financially, spiritually, physically, your physical health and well-being, your mental state, what kind of house do you want to live in? How many kids do you want to have? What kind of car do you want to drive? What is this life you really want to live? And so shotgunning things out there, you're just hoping that whatever happens turns out to be, something that will be close enough to allow you to live this lifestyle. Because, there's two people in the world. People that live to work, and there are people that work to live. Most people want to work to live for something greater than themselves. They want to, contribute to the community. They want to, have a certain kind of lifestyle and travel or do whatever it's important to them, right? And I told them, stop approaching it that way. You're going about it completely the wrong way. Define your ideal life you want to live. And then we match these assessments and things up to where you are now to the right thing for you.
Yeah.
Then you take out the sniper rifle and you just shoot that bullseye with one bullet, one trigger, and you'll get a lot better success. Well, we used that approach. It worked. He gets some interviews, ended up being with the largest credit union in the United States of America. Dream job for this guy.
That's awesome.
So we start the process of preparing for the interviews. And I said, so I'm not letting you go forward until I understand where you are mentally in this process. Because you keep telling me you're a high-level leader and all this kind of stuff. Going through this process, I found holes in his story. And, he was a director, a junior director, but he supervised like 4 people for a few years. And he wasn't quite equal director. I know directors out there and certain companies have 150, 200 people, right? A lot different. And you got to compare apples to apples here. And so he kept describing himself as this executive leader. Well, the fact of the matter was he really was not a seasoned executive leader at that point. And so we went through this process, and I said, well, we need to help you understand how an executive leader who's going to be interviewing you is going to think.
Yeah.
And so we went through that process. I trained him. I coached him. Poured into him, and there were times, Joel, where he was completely flat-footed. He thought he knew something. He thought he was doing something, and he just was uninformed.
Yeah.
And he just didn't know what he didn't know. And he was a great sport about it. He really got schooled up, and he took it. He goes back to number one we mentioned a minute ago. He was gravitating to it. He wanted it, and he soaked it up. The good news is out of this story is that we completely changed his perspective, completely changed his trajectory of the path he was on to a different one that took him down this different path. He ended up getting that job. He was a VP level role, and we helped him negotiate all of the things he needed to get out of that, relocation, sign-on bonus. I mean, he made out very well for himself in this process and showed up as an executive, because he was really showing up as a mid-level manager before this process really started, and they would have seen that a mile away. So really comparing yourself apples to apples, even though you may have a certain title, it doesn't mean you're apples to apples, the same thing as everybody else with the same kind of title. And it doesn't mean you have the same level of influence. Leadership's about influence, and how well you can influence others really determines how far you're going to go as a leader. And so if you can resonate with that particular story, Start with the process we laid out of those 4 things, with assessing yourself, getting the feedback, get a true bearing on where you really truly are in the grand scheme of things. And then, work with a mentor, a boss, a coach, or somebody that can help plot out a plan for you to, navigate to get where you want to be. Just like my client I was just telling you about.
Man, that's great. And that's a great story. And that's really kind of the reason behind us doing this podcast, providing some actual real practical steps for people to follow. I'm excited to advance towards those things just in my own personal life and in my own kind of rise in leadership as well. But our desire going forward is definitely going to be hitting a lot more practical topics, taking individual bite-sized important things and really diving deep into them. But we wanted to really dive into just the foundational principles of leadership for the first few episodes so that we could really kind of just sit in it, understand what we absolutely need to know, what we need to absolutely grasp and be willing to work on in our own individual lives. With Jason as someone that's got 20, 30 years of experience in leadership and coaching, and then me definitely in leadership positions, but just kind of at the beginning of what I want to be a very successful and exciting career. Well, Jason, it's been excellent just going through these really practical steps and hearing stories about how it's actually worked in people's lives. And so the whole point of this podcast is really to lay that foundation of what leadership, what coaching is, and then be able to use that foundation to kind of dive directly into the things that people are actually dealing with in the workforce today. We're about halfway through 2022 and crazy things are happening in the world still. I don't think we've really gotten back to the new normal that everyone's been talking about. But just in a practical sense, and as we wrap up these kind of 3 foundational episodes on leadership, how would I transition? How would our listeners transition directly into this advancement in pursuit of leadership? What are the kind of baseline things that I need to have within myself to be the kind of leader that would find success and take that to a new level?
Yeah. First thing is get out of your comfort zone. You've been doing things, you've been successful thus far. When you become a leader, when you aspire to be a higher level leader, as you continue to grow in your leadership journey at every stage, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to do things different. You cannot keep being the same person, doing the same things, and take that and use that recipe again. There are certain things you certainly can take with you, and you should, but you will have to evolve yourself. You will have to build new muscle to carry the more weight of the responsibilities that will be placed on your shoulders. You've got to build some more muscles to be able to carry that load, or you will fall under that weight. And it's just physics, it's just common sense, right? If you really think about it. You also have to kind of cut the cord. If you think about a balloon that's tied to something on the ground, the balloon can't rise. You as a leader can't continue to rise unless you cut the cord from what you were doing, right? So you cut the cord on a balloon on the string and it'll float up and go as high as it can go. You have to kind of cut the cord as a leader or as a manager and as that level of leader to be able to rise above and gain, greater altitude to change your perception of a 5,000 foot view to a 10, to a 20, to a 50, whatever that may be for you in your journey. You have to gain that vantage point, or you will only have the vantage point of what you have, right? And so here's an illustration. You've heard of the Iditarod, right?
I haven't.
You have not. All right. Think of dog sledding.
Oh yeah.
Okay. In the cold, icy, snowy parts of the world that we live, they have snow dogs and sleds and people that ride around on them and race through the wilderness and the countryside and compete and what have you, right? What is the view of the 2 dogs. Normally there's 2 rows of dogs, 4 or 5
I've
dogs
seen
on
those
each
before.
side of things, and they're just kind of plowing forward. What's the view of the 2 front leading dogs?
You can see everything, I would assume.
They can see everything. It's wide open. There's nothing blocking their perspective. They can see the animals, the trees, the snow, the trail, and where it's turning and twisting. What's the view of every other dog behind the lead dogs?
Probably not the greatest view, I would assume.
It's a very narrow view. They can only see normally the back end of the dog in front of them.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of peripheral out the side, but they're not taking in that view and seeing everything they need to see. Well, as a leader, are you going to succeed with the ability to view things in its entirety, or are you going to succeed with a very narrow view?
Very rarely the narrow view.
Yeah. The broader the view, the more informed you're going to be and the more successful you can be. So you've got to cut that cord and you've got to let yourself rise up, and you've got to trust yourself, have confidence in yourself. And more importantly, you've got to trust the people underneath you that they're not going to screw up or make you look bad. There's a lot of nervousness and fear with leaders that, oh my gosh, I'm letting go. I'm going here, and well, what's going to happen? And they try to, control things too much. And so when you aspire to the next level of leadership, whether you're just getting on that journey or you've been on that journey and you're moving up to another level, remember, leadership is about people, not things.
Yeah.
Okay? Your number one job as a leader is to inspire people, connect with people, get to know people, get to know their kids' names. If their dog is in the vet clinic, because he got sick.
Yeah.
Connecting with people and what's going on with them. One way to do that, I would give you as an example, is from a book I read many years ago. It's a very simple read. It's Lincoln on Leadership. It's based on President Lincoln and his time as the president, how he led. And it surrounds managing, leading by walking around.
Yeah.
President Lincoln didn't summons everybody to the White House all the time. He got out of the White House. He went to where they were on the battlefield and visited his generals. He went to offices of his cabinet members. He was out and about more than he was in D.C. He always wanted to see the perspective of other people because it helped shape how they made decisions. And if your perspective is, my office behind the computer, sending out emails all day, kind of a digital leader, you're not going to be very successful. I encourage you to be, I'm going to use an old school term here, more of an analog leader, more of a get out and talk to people leader, see their environments. And when I was in other companies and organizations before I got into coaching, every single week on Friday mornings, I just set it up on my calendar and the cadence of my week. Every single Friday morning, I get in about 8. I'd set my stuff down on the desk. I'd wear a little more casual gear, and I'd just walk around. I had no agenda. I had, no pressing priorities to task people with. I just walked around. It was good for me it was a way for me to kind of get out of the office and decompress, but more importantly, it was a way for me to see other people's perspectives.
Yeah. And
I'd ask them, I'd see a picture of their family on the shelf at their desk. I'm like, so tell me about your family, and this goes on every week. And I get involved in their stories, when their dog gets sick, when their kid needed, ear tubes put in their ears, all these things that come out when they're going on vacation. They get back. So how'd you like Mexico? What was your favorite part? And I would just talk, and I would just get to know them, and the fact that they felt like I cared,
Yeah.
and I didn't have an agenda. I didn't come in with a bunch of tasks. They didn't run from me, and that they were like, "Hey, Jason, how's it going?" They were excited. They wanted to talk. They wanted to share. And quite frankly, people need to be around the leader.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They need to see the leader. They need to feel like, they're valued, and they've got thoughts, they've got ideas, and they're just springing stuff on, hey, what about this? What about that? One of the most interesting things, but simple things, can make the biggest difference. I was in an organization one time. I was at the service desk. And I was talking to some of the ladies that work there. They've been working there a long, long time. And we were joking and laughing and cutting up and talking about sports and football and just talking shop and picking and teasing a little bit. And I was getting ready to walk away. And as I was walking away, I asked one of the ladies, said, "Hey, what one thing can I do that can make a difference here?" This lady did not skip a beat. Before I can even stop talking, she said, "TV in the break room." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "Come with me." We went into the break room. She's like, "Look, we need to get away. We need to get our headsets off. We need to quit talking to customers. We need a break. We're here all day working on challenges and issues for people, serving people. And we come in the break room, and it's just these tan walls, and it's a microwave and a fridge, and it's whatever. It'd be great if we had a TV. It'd be great if we had this, that, and the other." So a couple simple things. I'm like, "Okay, done." And she looked at me, her eyes got big. She's like, "Next week, had a TV on the wall, cable TV plugged in. A couple days later, I'm walking around. I bopped in the old break room. Everybody's cheering and laughing, and they're watching Family Feud with Steve Harvey, right? And they're this show is getting crazy. They're all laughing, and the break room was going wild, right? And I sat back in the corner. I got feedback. That was one of the biggest things that we did to improve morale more than anything we did. Simple things. So get out there and get to know people, because you have to motivate them. You have to inspire them. You have to build trust in them. They will not follow you if you're running 100 miles an hour ahead of them. They can't catch you. They can't see you. You've got to be visible. You've got to be in close proximity, and you have to be able to serve them in the space where they need to be served.
And then that goes back to something that we were talking about on our previous episode on leadership, which is just you can't really fake service. You can't fake caring about people. And people will honestly be able to see directly through that if you are attempting to do that. So absolutely, leadership and motivation comes through ultimately just communication, accessibility, approachability. And I mean, just, sitting in my perspective, I can see that that's true for you. And that's absolutely something that I am attempting to emulate in the position I'm in as well.
Yeah. In addition to inspiring people, bringing out the best in people, learning people and what they're good at, what they're not good at. The next thing you need to be thinking about as a leader and how you can contribute the most, and that's grow new leaders.
That's good.
People beneath you need leadership. They want to grow. They want to succeed. They want an opportunity to do bigger and better things and give more value and have an opportunity to be all that they are dreaming to be one day.
Yeah.
And as a leader, a lot of leaders make this mistake, and it comes from insecurities. They're scared to see other people coming up underneath them. They start getting close to where they are, and they get, "Oh my God, he's going to make me look bad. Oh, well, if I'm not, here every day, and I never, if I take a vacation and they step in, the boss sees them and not me, and they make me look bad or think of something I didn't think of. They're leading from the kind of this fear standpoint. It's a huge, huge mistake that really does get in the way of leaders really driving their abilities to the best of their ability. Leaders have to be comfortable and confident in themselves that building people up underneath them is a good thing, it's not a negative thing. In fact, the reverse is true. Leadership, as a leader, you're no longer measured. Your success is no longer measured by what you personally contribute to the game.
Yeah.
Those days are over when you're a leader. Your only success is measured in how successful other people are around you, your peers, and certainly your subordinates. If your subordinates are winning awards, your subordinates are going to training and growing and evolving, and good things are happening in that environment, then leadership has got it right. When people are struggling, when people aren't progressing, then leadership's got something wrong somewhere along the way. In addition to those two things, the third thing I would encourage people to be thinking about is setting people up for success. Aligning people in the right types of roles. The worst thing you can do is put the wrong person in the wrong role and put pressure on them to succeed, and they're not fit. They're not qualified. They're not trained. They don't want it. They're not good at it. And so kind of goes back to some earlier discussions about assessments and really understanding who your people are, the clarity, knowing who your people are, what skills they bring to the table, what their desires are, what their passions are, and aligning that in the organization is critical. But people also need development. They need training. They need tools, equipment, resources. Your job as a leader is to be out in front of that and anticipate those needs. And by the time the people are going down this path, need those things, they're already, in motion or already in place, and they can reach for them, grab them, and use them and go forward, so you don't stop momentum. Yeah. And I think if leaders think about it from those simple terms, that helps get them started on the right foot, regardless of where they are in their leadership journey.
Man, that's exciting, and that is exactly what you said. It's practical. I mean, and I'm, just thank you, I suppose, for giving like very practical, like, hey, this is the test that you can go take today to know that you're a leader, or what kind of leader you could be potentially in the future. And then here are just some very foundational principles on what needs to exist in your life specifically, so that you can reach the next level. So we're about running out of time now, but maybe just as a way to inspire, tell us about just a specific leader in your life, Jason, that has just meant and exemplified all of these things that you're able to tell us now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that opportunity, Joel. The most important, influential person that aside from my wife and kids, leadership-wise, to ever come across, that I ever came across in my life, was one very important person to me, and I call him Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim was a very successful guy. He was in sales. He worked in Procter & Gamble. He worked in Coca-Cola most of his career. He's an executive in the sales business development arena. And I looked at him personally, had his act together, had a great family. My cousins were raised. He was an old soul. He's the kind of person, he never yelled at people, never was kind of demanding. He was very calm, very cool. He was a big guy though, man. He was an outdoorsy hunter, fisherman kind of guy, 6'4", 240, 50 pounds, used to play football. he was an intimidating guy, had a big old bushy, mustache like Sam Elliott, He was a man's man. When he walked tall and he was confident, but he was also very like approachable too. And he had a good heart. And the things that really, I watched him in his career, I watched him in the family, and people, he was like a magnet for people. People just like attracted to him all the time. I went to the store with him one day to get some things at the store, and hey, want to ride with me, Jason? Heck yeah. So we jump in the truck, we go down the road, and he knew people in the store. Hey, Susie. Hey, Joe. How you doing? How's your dog feeling? He just can, and people lit up. I watched people when they interacted with him. They just lit up. He always had neighbors coming over, and they were trading food and drinks and just always people. He's just always around a lot of people. And I remember going fishing with him. I remember going out to the hunting camps with him and shooting guns and doing all the, cool guys, manly man kind of stuff. And it was a lot of fun, but he just had a way around people. And I sat down a few years ago with him and I said, so what is it about you that's so magnetic? And he just sees things in people they don't see in themselves. We went out to dinner one night, and the waiter comes over with our glass of water and tea and stuff, and he had a grip on the top of the glass. Mm-hmm. He sets it down, and Uncle Jim looks at me, I look at him, and he, of course, being Coca-Cola, he sold products to restaurants. He was very, very savvy about how restaurants work. He's like, he calls the waiter back over, and he's like, hey, I appreciate all the great things you're doing. He's like, a little helpful tip. Never, ever touch the top of the glass. Always the bottom. And he went on to talk to this young guy for a few minutes. This guy, he was like, he didn't take offense to it. He was like instantly like hypnotized by this and was really, he's like, really, that's really awesome and great. A few months later, we went back to that restaurant again, and he's like, yeah, thanks for that tip, man. I'm really, doing some different things. And, and he just had that way about him. People just gravitated to him. He just had that energy about him. Very positive, very strong, very confident. And he just saw things in people and wasn't afraid, like he's the kind of guy, like my kids come around, they, hey, can we get some cake and ice cream? Sure, no problem. You do it. What do you say, girls? Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. All that kind of stuff. And people just respect that about him. He's just that kind of leader. And even as a young man, he's kind of like a fatherly figure to me as well, and taught me a lot of things my own dad, either didn't or wasn't capable of doing. And he's just near and dear to my heart. And I have carried those principles with me through good times and bad. And it's just always in my heart, always in my soul of how he did it. And so if I get in a tough situation where I really need to dig deep as a leader, I kind of go back to, what would Uncle Jim do? And that's always worked for me. And I've used that as kind of a foundation of, my own leadership style.
Yeah, man. Well, that's really inspiring. And as we just wrap up this episode, that kind of just encapsulates everything that we are hoping to do through this podcast, is just inspire, to hopefully listen to you, our audience. So please, if there are any questions or anything that you'd like to hear us discuss, please send that in. All of our social handles will be listed in the show notes of the episode. But again, the main purpose of this is all that we, just as individuals, Jason and myself, would reach that next highest altitude, that we would look at the proven strategies, resources, and the expert advice given to us by our mentors, and hopefully in whatever gifts that we've been given in those spheres to be able to give that out to everyone else. But thank you so much for listening to Soar Higher with Jason Ballard. Again, all of our social handles will be in the show notes of the episode. Please like and subscribe. Please reach out if you have anything that you'd like us to talk about. Going forward, we're definitely going to be looking at some more practical, relevant issues just hitting the business sphere in 2022 and beyond. So if you're interested in learning more about Jason specifically as a business and executive coach, please visit soarhighercoaching.com. Again, that's soarhighercoaching.com. And join us, please, again next week as we provide more insight on how to overcome the latest business and career challenges facing people today in the workforce. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
And Jason, I think that was a really good episode. I think we got a lot more to talk about.